What is up there, guys, and welcome back to the channel as always. Okay, so in today's video we're going to discuss on how exactly our tax money is being used. Because let's be honest here, guys, I know when we see our checks and we see at least maybe $200 to $300 every week being taken out, it's such a huge disappointment, and especially even more because we don't see where that money is being used, and it just feels like the government is ripping us off, which they are somewhat, but we won't get into that on this video, okay, guys? So I'm just going to briefly discuss on a few different topics on how our money is being used, as to really help you guys further understand why and how it's actually being used, okay? Because most of us don't really think about where our money is actually going, because I know as soon as we get our check, we just see that money being taken out and it's just like whatever, okay? So I figured it's kind of important to know where it actually goes. So that's what we will be discussing today, okay, guys? So to begin with, why exactly do we pay our taxes, huh? Well, we basically pay taxes because the federal, state, and municipal governments enact these tax laws. And basically that tax revenue pays for government services. So it basically funds for these different types of things that are being used on a daily basis. So what I'm really going to be discussing today is on 3 different types of taxes on which our money is being used, which I'm going to be going over: federal, state, and law taxes, okay? So let's begin with the federal taxes. Now, when it comes to federal taxes, the largest expense they use our money for is Social Security. And these are really to support our fellow seniors in this country, okay? So whenever you yourself get old later on in the future, it's basically going to be a way of supporting for yourself later on down the road. So again, even though we don't see this money physically being used ourselves, just know every time you see that on your pay stub or whatever it may be, think of this, okay? And for this expense, they spend about over $1 trillion. So that's a lot of money, guys, especially when you collect from every single individual worker here in this country. That's a lot of money. And this basically comes from our payroll taxes and investments by the Social Security Trust Fund. Now, the next largest expense under federal taxes is defense. And this is around $824 billion. So again, this is a lot of money, guys, that's being used to cover these type of services for us. And this basically supports agencies like Homeland Security and the Veterans Administration. And it's also able to fund for military wars overseas. So I guess next time you think about this, think of your soldiers out there, okay? Now, the third largest expense when it comes to federal taxes is going to go to Medicare at around $582 billion as well. So you start adding all these amounts of money, guys. I mean, that's a lot of money that our taxes is going to just to fund for these type of services. So again, just like Social Security, you're basically paying for future services that you yourself will use later on in the future. So again, think of it as a way as, I guess, saving up for your own future, you know. Now, the fourth largest expense that our taxes are being used under federal taxes is Medicaid. And this expense is around $404 billion. So again, large expense, guys. And you really only receive this if your income receives below a certain level. So if you're not making too much, you basically qualify for this service for you to be able to use. Now, even though if you never even need it, you benefit by helping low-income children and their families to receive preventive care. So these are just some of the few different types of ways in which your federal taxes are being used at hand. Now, moving on to state taxes. Now, back in 2014, the largest state expense was for social services, including Medicaid, welfare, and public housing. And that's because states administer federal funds for these services, which would also make sense to make the largest expense administration for state taxes. And most of this was for employee retirement and many more other benefits. And states spent around usually $284 billion on education, $116 billion on transportation, and $114 billion on hospitals and health expenses. So again, guys, large money just to cover these different programs, okay? And in total, these states spend around $1.5 trillion each year just to fund for these programs. So again, guys, I know it sucks to not see your tax money being used physically, but hopefully you see that it's covering some of these topics that I'm breaking down for you, and it makes it a little bit more, I guess, easier to understand and why your money is being used the way it is. Now, moving on to local taxes. Now, when it comes to local taxes, the biggest expense they use is around $631 billion, and they mainly use this to fund for education and libraries. So that's going to be the biggest expense that local taxes are being used for, to help further educate some of these kids out to better their futures. And different types of ways that our local taxes are being used would be for water and sewer services, administration, local government, even to fund for your fellow officers, firefighters, transportation, health and hospitals, welfare and public housing, for parks, it's so many ways our money is being used, guys, but there's just so many to list on this one video, and I really don't want to extend it too long. So again, I'm just naming a few ways that our money is being used from our taxes. Now in total, when it comes to our local taxes, the government spends around $1.6 trillion annually. So again, guys, there's a lot of money being used just to fund things outside that we use on a daily basis. From our roads to our parks, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, just so many different things. So again, I really hope this helped you guys realize on why they probably take some of our money away. Now, I know it's not fair. Trust me, it's not. I don't like it as much as the next guy out there does, but I mean, it is what it is. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be making a future channel update video, I guess, as you might say. And I'll go over a few different things as far as I see this channel moving forward and whatnot. But for now, just stay tuned. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. And you also hit the little notification bell as well. And if you liked it, guys, definitely give it a like. And let me know what you think down in the comments down below. And I'll see you guys on the next video.